The Supa Supa no Mi, or Dice Dice fruit, used by Mr. One Daz Bones, was originally seen as an extremely powerful devil fruit, allowing the user to turn their limbs and entire body, realistically, into blades. The opinion of the fruit dropped substantially after Baby 5 was introduced sometime later, as her devil fruit, the Buki Buki no Mi, allows her to change her limbs into just about any weapon she can imagine. Why would you want a devil fruit that lets you turn your arms into blades if you could have one that allows you to turn them into blades, rocket launchers, or whatever else you could imagine? Oda even mentioned the Supa Supa no Mi when he listed 4 fruits that had superior versions. So most people think that this is just a straight upgrade, that the Supa Supa no Mi is just a weaker version of the Buki Buki no Mi. My first idea to put a positive spin on this was that because Mr. One is only able to turn his body into swords or blades, he would become much more proficient, as he only needs to train with those swords or blades. But that's not really a great argument, because if they are identical and Mr. One only was limited to swords while Baby 5 could pick any weapon, she could still just pick swords and then become just as proficient with them, but she would also have the flexibility of being able to use other weapons, so that's not a great argument. Of the 4, I do think that this one is the most difficult one to defend, largely because it does rely on quite a bit of speculation, but I still think that it does have its merits. First of all, the whole point of Mr. One's fruit in that arc was that it essentially made his body steel. Zoro needed to be able to cut steel in order to beat him, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to leave a mark on him. This wasn't armament hockey, it was just that he could turn into swords. His entire body, swords, steel. When Baby 5 turns into weapons, she needs to straight up turn into the weapon. Meanwhile, Mr. One, it's just entire body steel. You can make blades on the edges. So Baby 5 doesn't have the defensive benefit of straight up being entirely composed of steel, essentially. Furthermore, her weapons, when she makes them, are just weapons. The exact shape of the weapon and everything. If she turns into a scythe, she becomes a scythe. Straight handle, curved blade. She can't bend that curved blade. It's not like her leg is just part of that blade that she can bend and use. She turns her arm into a sword, the wrist disappears, her arm just becomes a sword. You've got the guard, you've got the blade, it's just a sword. She can't bend her wrist because the wrist is no longer there. If she turned her entire arm into a sword, it would just be a sword. No articulation there. Whereas when Daz Bones turns, say, his fingers into blades, they still behave as fingers. He can still move them. Turns his arm into a blade, it's still full functioning joint and everything. Elbow, still a sharp blade. If you hit it, you're getting cut. Baby 5 could try to get around this by making each segment a different blade. We did see that she's able to essentially make a functioning weapon with just part of it, such as the finger pistol. That she just turned her finger into a barrel, and apparently it still functioned as a gun. So she could potentially make her forearm a blade, her bicep a different blade, or tricep, I suppose, and still have the articulation of the elbow. But in order for her elbow to have articulation, it would seem that that needs to stay as an elbow. So not only would her elbow not be bladed, it would still just be flesh and bone, which would explain why she doesn't seem to ever do that. If she's going into attack with scythe arms, she turns the entire arm into scythe. The strange thing about the list of devil fruits that Oda gave, and this one especially, it really doesn't seem like the fundamentals of the fruit are the same. The way we've really seen Mr. One use the fruit, it seems like it's more of a steel fruit that also allows him to turn the edges of said steel into blades. Whereas Baby 5's fruit is just turn things into weapons. You're normally just fleshy. If the weapon is steel, that part of you that is the weapon, the set weapon, will also be steel. But that's the only way that you would become as durable as steel, whereas Mr. One can just make his entire body as durable as steel. Again, if the Buki Buki no Mi can do everything that the Supa Supa no Mi can, it is absolutely just a straight upgrade. But it seems to be the case that for the Buki Buki no Mi, you get the flexibility of being able to choose whatever type of weapon you want to turn into. But the Supa Supa no Mi grants much more flexibility in the area of swords. Unless Baby 5 was just really bad with her fruit. Which is possible, but I pretty highly doubt that. If it were possible for her to just turn her entire body into steel, I think we would have seen that. And we didn't because she was damaged by fairly mundane means. She was not as durable as steel. So I was actually planning on doing this one last, but the Kido Kido versus Tun Tun ended up being way more technical than I expected, and I really don't think I'll have time to edit all of that in time.